Roll Tide, everybody, and welcome to Cover Crimson. We're going to talk about Bama's practice. Clint was there today, one step closer to taking on Florida State. We're presented by Pearl River Resort in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Hey, that's where I'm going to be today. So you guys know that. Jay Coker and I will be here. Dancing Rabbit Golf Course, which is the Augusta you can play. Two amazing courses. We'll probably eat at Philip M. Steakhouse. You'll see me in the sports book. And we appreciate them for their continued support of what we do here. So with that said, before we get into anything else, let's hit the open and then let's talk a little Bama. All right, there he is, Clint Lamb, Mick Gillispie. Clint, straight back from Bama practice, and they're back at it, trying to get ready for this football game. What'd you see?
I saw a lot, Mick. Not only did I see a lot, but also Ryan Grubb was pretty informative with, some of the things that he said, and I definitely want to get into that. But we'll start with some of the things that I observed. Number one, Jaden Roberts he was in a white jersey, and I say white. Let's start there. The offense had been in crimson all fall camp. The defense had been in white. But one of the things that this coaching staff likes to do is based off of the opponent, if it's home or away, they'll put the offense in the color that they're going to be wearing that Saturday. And the reason they do that is so the quarterbacks can get used to throwing to the colored jersey that they're going to be throwing to on Saturdays, whether it's a white jersey or the crimson jersey. So Alabama's offense was in white today, and the defense was in crimson. And so that was a little bit of a change up. But Jaden Roberts was in a white jersey, so he was not in a black no contact jersey as he's going through concussion protocol. But I thought it was really interesting because so first of all, he was not working with the first team. He was second in line going through some of the drills, but then they split off into two offensive line groups. And the first one was, the typical, everybody that you've come to expect with Gino Vandermark at right guard, Cam Dewberry at left guard. But then the second group was Ola Saline at left tackle, Will Sanders at left guard, Joe Ionata at center, Michael Carroll at right guard. He had been playing a lot of right tackle. And then you had Jackson Lloyd at right tackle. Jaden Roberts was standing behind that group with his helmet in his hand, watching or observing rather than standing behind the first team offensive line that was also going through something similar. They kind of split it up to where they can. So, I thought that was interesting. Why wouldn't you be standing behind the first team if you're just observing anyways? That was strange to me, but that was something. The running back pecking order, as far as going through the drills, nothing really has changed. It was Richard Young. It was Daniel Hill. It was Dre Washington, Kevin Riley, and then A.K. Deere. But, it's one of the things that I thought was probably the most fascinating, and I want to get into this first, was on defense. I went over, so you had the defensive line kind of off doing their own thing, and you also had, for whatever reason, Deontay Lawson and Nakai Hill Green going through some tackling dummy drills with the defensive line. But not only that, everybody else was pretty much doing their own thing on a separate field. You had one Wolf. You had one linebacker on the field at a time, and you had 6 defensive backs. So it was 2 perimeter corners. Really, you could say 3 perimeter corners, even though one of them was playing like a nickel corner. You could also call that a husky if you wanted to. But then they had 3 safety looks. So sometimes it was 3 high safeties. Sometimes they bring one of those safeties next to the off-ball linebacker, kind of acting as a dime linebacker. We saw Bray Hubbard do that. We saw Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. do that. So really fascinated to see how that's going to be implemented on Saturdays, because one of the things that we did not see from Kane Wommack, and we really haven't seen it anywhere he's been, or that at least not from tape that I had seen, was them going anything other than like a 4-2-5, or if you want to call that Wolf a linebacker, a 3-3-5 personnel. You don't really see them go with dime looks where you have 6 defensive backs in the field. Yet on Tuesday today, we saw them doing just that. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And it's also like when you show up, like what you're looking for, right? Like some people probably just show up, hey, look, we're watching football. You're really throwing those snitch eyes out there. What do I see going on?
You know what? I guarantee you, if you were to ask a coach or whatever, they would love that phrase, the snitch eyes, because that's exactly. And you know, who knows? I might get a call from Alabama. But the thing about that, though, Mick, why would you put it why would you put it out there? Why would you do that while we were out there if that's not something that you wanted us to talk about? But you know, it is really fascinating, because that's something that a lot of NFL defenses do. Is they'll have 6 defensive backs on the field, but then you'll have what's called a dime linebacker, which is essentially a safety that's big enough and good enough to play in the box, and it gives you some athleticism. It gives you that 6th defensive back. And when you're thinking about like a Gus Malzahn, you know, offense with a dual threat quarterback that's probably going to be pretty hard to contain, putting a little bit more speed and athleticism on the field, you know, that's something that I could totally see them doing. With that being said, 2 linebackers. The first linebacker was Justin Jefferson, and the second was Caden Jones. Do I really think that Deontay Lawson is going to be standing on the sidelines? I mean, maybe, depending on that knee and how far along he is. Maybe there's some situational stuff where that happens, but you know, I don't know what to make of it. But I found it so fascinating because it's just not something that we've really ever seen from Kane Womack. But for anybody that thinks Alabama's going to be vanilla and they're going to do the same things they did last year, and they're going to get in like these kind of we're opposing offenses, they know what's coming. I don't think that's going to be the case. Just seeing that today, it's like, man, I think that now that guys are more comfortable playing in this system, playing under this coaching staff, they're able to kind of slowly implement more and more. I think that's going to make a huge difference on Saturdays.
Yeah. Hey, I love it when you say that. And I've heard good things about that. There's very high expectations. Coach Saban talked about expecting Alabama to have a good season, that he likes what he's seeing, that it'll be a lot better this year just because of the transition that they dealt with last year. You know, you're at practice. Who's getting after it? You know, who are the coaches that are really verbal? You know, DeBoer just seems like he's like always kind of positive and fast moving from the videos that we've seen. But what did you see?
You know, I think DeBoer's been getting after people a little bit more. You know, I definitely saw that in one of the practices, but with what they're doing, a lot of warm-up stuff. I mean, I've heard Kane Womack jump people before for sure, but not a whole lot. It's more of, you know, they're not doing a ton while we're out there. So what I'm more so looking at is like the Jaden Roberts situation. And a lot of people, what they don't probably think about is it's where my mind goes. Okay, he's standing behind, he's holding a helmet. That makes sense to me. But why is he doing it behind the second team offensive line? I mean, these were split up a pretty good distance away. Why is he over there with a second rather than the first? You know, if he's already standing just observing anyways, like when I think about when I go over there and start watching the defense and I see them in this new look, and I'm not only seeing them in a new look, I'm seeing the 3 high safety stuff, which Mississippi State does a lot of that. That can be really advantageous. You let some safeties roam. I mean, and if you got the right guys that are kind of ball hawks and they'll, you know, relentless styles of player, that can be a fun defense to watch. I don't think you want to do that too much. I think there's too much that you can do to counter it or combat it. But I think getting in some of those looks in certain situations can certainly be advantageous for Alabama. But, you know, one of the other things that I wanted to mention was the running backs, and we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the tight ends too, because, you know, we saw how they were going through the drills, and Richard Young, he's leading the pack right now with Jan Miller sidelined. But once again, Ryan Grubb, after the practice, he was interviewed and he was asked about the running backs. And I'll just go ahead and read you exactly kind of how he worked his way through it. First of all, he said, what do they need to, you know, how is that looking with Jan Miller being sidelined? And he said they need to see a lot over the next week leading up to preparations for Florida State, who can handle the game plan the best, who's the most responsible with all of their duties. That's obvious. That makes a lot of sense. But then when he was asked, like, what have you seen from the running backs, you know, kind of an overview that does not include Jan Miller, the first name he mentioned is Daniel Hill has done a good job providing protection. So that pass protection, that element that we know is a very critical factor in this offense, that's the first thing that he mentions. But he also said he's gotten a lot better as far as using his eyes. He's a super physical guy. But he also said, I think Daniel has started to run like the back we saw in the spring. Early in camp, we thought he was a little bit slow to come to that. That, to me, Mick, makes so much sense because based off of what I was hearing back in the spring, that's where I really started to get excited about this guy. And so it now, you know, he gets to fall camp and we're still hearing good things and stuff, but I'm not hearing nearly the buzz on him that I was hearing back in the spring. Well, then you realize, okay, for whatever reason, he just wasn't bringing it at the beginning of fall camp. He seems to be getting back to that player. That player, I think, can really help Alabama's offense, and I'm really excited about him. But he also said Dre Washington has great vision running the football. He improves every day still. I think he has some of the pass protection responsibilities and things like that were probably not in his wheelhouse prior to getting here. And then who do you think is the next guy he mentions, Mick?
Probably A.K. Deer.
Kevin Riley.
Hey, look, I'm a Kevin Riley fan. You know that, former County High broadcaster. Go Cats.
Yeah, I would have thought Richard Young. Hey, well, interesting. He ends up listing, Daniel Hill. He talks about Dre Washington. Next in natural progression is Richard Young. What does he do? He says Kevin Riley started to show up a little bit. He's a guy who has really nice vision, not as big of a back as other guys, but he runs very physical and is really good out of the backfield. And then he moved on from the question. So he brought up Daniel Hill, he brought up Dre Washington, and then he brought up Kevin Riley when he was asked about that position. Now, here's the thing. He was also asked about the tight ends later. He brought up Danny Lewis. He brought up Josh Cuevas. Then he brought up Caleb Edwards, and we'll get to that here in just a little bit. Then he brings up Jay Lindsey. So, Jay Lindsey is like the Kevin Riley equivalent, where it's like guys who are in that mix, and then you throw one of those guys who were kind of, I wouldn't say he's an afterthought, but just compared to some of these other players, hadn't been in that conversation. It's one of two things. Either A, Richard Young, people need to start tempering their expectations with him, or Richard Young's going to be the big thing. And Marshall Pritchett, who was also not mentioned, he's going to be a big thing. And, Ryan Grubb just doesn't want to reveal that to Florida State. Now, granted, he was asked a specific question about Rich Young soon after, and he went in and he was very complimentary. He said he was physical, works extremely hard, great things to say about him. But it was just strange to me how he was skipped. And there's a lot of guys, and you're asked a question. Sometimes you just miss stuff. But, it was the same outside of Kevin Riley. It was the same order that Kalen DeBoer went down when Jam Miller was available. When he was asked about it following the first scrimmage, he said Jam Miller, he said Daniel Hill, then he said Dre Washington. And he right there at the end, he said Rich Young is doing his thing too. Right. I just think that's interesting, Mick.
Yeah, I do too. And hold that thought. Let me remind you guys that we're presented by Residence Inn by Marriott Ocean City, all the way up there in Maryland. And you guys can get there, flights, drive, but look at that sunset. Amazing, great seafood. You want a real crab cake, that's where you go to get them. That's some of the stuff that they serve down in these parts. But a real Maryland crab cake, they have them at Ocean City, some of the best in the world. Back-to-back coastal style hotel of the year. And our guy Keith runs the place, big Bama guy. And he would love to see you guys go there. Next Round did their show there. They absolutely love the place. So you will too. So you talked about the tight ends, right? And that I don't want to say tight ends are like special teams for us, where I'm very concerned about special teams. But I'm just with tight ends, I'm thinking, it's definitely an area where we got two guys that transferred in. We lost some guys last year, the bulk of those guys, but I didn't really feel like we had a superstar tight end. There was no Irv Smith. There was no OJ Howard, right? But they were good. And then you're kind of wondering how all of this, whether you're talking blocking tight end or a guy that can run out and make catches, how this is going to look. And then you're saying he's talking about some guys you wouldn't expect, but he's also talking about Cuevas, who we kind of expect to be the go-to guy there catching the ball.
Well, here's the thing about the tight ends. Josh Cuevas and Danny Lewis were both working off to themselves while all the rest of the tight ends were doing some drills, and they were just kind of slowly running some routes and looking to cut. I thought Cuevas looked fine. I did not think Danny Lewis looked fine. He looked extremely hobbled to me. Now, what's weird about that, he was in a white jersey, as was Josh Cuevas. They weren't in black no contact jerseys. Now, we don't know what happens when we leave, but when he was asked about those guys, I mean, he's talking about they're handling a large workload in these scrimmages, and he's just talking about like they're completely fine. That was weird to me. Maybe I don't know. I was like, man, he kind of, when he's making that cut, and it was very soft routes. It was very slow, just kind of warming up kind of thing. But when he would go to make his cut, I thought he looked a little strange. And then I'm watching him walk, and it's like a clear hobble, and both ankles are heavily wrapped, as was Josh Cuevas's. I don't know what to make of that, but I will say that one of the things that he said about Caleb Edwards, which I found fascinating, was he said Caleb Edwards has shown to be more physical. That was one of the things I think was going to be the biggest challenges for him initially, making the jump from high school ball to this. That is the biggest challenge for a high school player at the tight end position, because you need to be reliable enough as a pass catcher. You got to be able to separate from SEC defensive backs linebackers and safeties, SEC defenders, and you've got to be able to block SEC defensive linemen and SEC linebackers. It's tough for tight ends to make an early impact. And physicality is the number one thing that guys have trouble with as they're making that transition. Now, when you're Caleb Edwards and you're 6'6", 264 pounds, that certainly helps out the gate. But that was the one thing I was really worried about with him. And the fact that he has arrived as a summer enrollee and he's got the physicality part down and he's doing that side of it, I'm not worried about. Now, he's still got to grasp the playbook. I don't know how much they'll put on his plate, but he feels like a guy, Mick. I'm telling you, he is going to contribute in 2025. It is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. And I couldn't tell you exactly when that's going to be, but just all of the buzz that I've heard about this guy, he is too talented of a player where if he's getting things from a physicality standpoint, when he finally starts to get comfortable and confident playing in this offense, he's going to be a guy that's just going to force his way onto the field. So I'm really excited about him. Didn't really hear nothing about Marshall Pritchett, even though we've also heard good reviews, but he just wasn't mentioned by Ryan Grubb. But I'm really excited about Caleb Edwards, Mick.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, look, I remember when Brock Bowers was a freshman at Georgia, people were like, they didn't think he was going to be Brock Bowers. It's a guy that's just making a bunch of plays in practice. And then all of a sudden he becomes just a star, right? Will Anderson at Alabama was one of those guys. Like, okay, yeah, this guy, have you heard of him? Yeah, man. I mean, he's really disruptive. And then all of a sudden, this is a good football team. I'm hearing that from people that I know that are at practice, that know the coaches. They feel like this is a good football team. And when you're able to get out there and do things for this team as a freshman, then you're doing things, right? Like it's legit. It's not like you're playing against, a bunch of scrubs and then you're going to get into the game and the competition is going to go down. It should be even or, harder in practice than it is in the games. So you hope that Edwards takes advantage of this opportunity that's certainly there for Alabama. And I'm excited about that. Guys, I want to tell you this before we talk about some other stuff. First off, we are brought to you by Pearl River Resort, Philadelphia, Mississippi, the Azaleas, the Oaks, two amazing golf courses at Dancing Rabbit. There now, and it's going to be great. Can't wait to go and hit some golf balls with Coker. He's on his way down here. You guys are invited to come over. It's an hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, 2 and change from Birmingham. Whether you like golf and you want to go to an elite level golf course, one of the best in the entire South, and you don't have to have a membership, Dancing Rabbit. We'll go to the steakhouse. We'll do that at Philip M's, get the steak and the chowder, probably a few old fashions by the time work's over, kind of slow down a little bit. But the slots are great, Silver Star and Golden Moon Casino. Also, the Geyser Falls Water Park is going right now. You got the wave pool. You got the lazy river. You got all the slides and everything else. Plus, Tracy Lawrence is coming in November to perform. But they always have acts and stuff here. We appreciate their help. Now, the other thing I want to tell you is when you go out on the golf course, you want to look good. Same way when game day happens. You want to look good on game day. And we got you covered there as well. 20% off at rowback.com, whether you're looking for an Alabama polo, a pullover like the guy, like Clint's cousin on there wearing that thing on the commercial. We got you covered. Crimson 20. And, just a little wink, wink. Every time you change email addresses, you get 20% off. So take advantage of that. It's looking good. You want to look good. It makes you feel good. And then maybe you get your new Lucky Alabama shirt out of that. New look on defense, Clint. I think you kind of touched on that a little bit, but this is definitely interesting. Yeah.
So Peasy, he says, looks like the defense is becoming more versatile. 100%. There was another one down here. First of all, I guess I can grab some of these and we can talk about them a little bit. Chris, they have started preparing for Florida State. I think that was kind of the point, or at least the announcement to me, was the fact that they were wearing different jerseys to kind of reflect it. That's kind of how you know. And they're about to get started with school, so fall camp's coming to a close pretty quickly. Defensive changeups are great to see. A couple of games last year, other teams seemed to have Bama's defense completely figured out, change it up. That was from Jimmy James. I completely agree. Chad asked if I am able to ask questions to coaches after media viewing periods. No, you're not. Once they start escorting us off, I mean, it's during a period where we're supposed to be watching, but they go ahead and start escorting us off the field, and they are very diligent about it. But I also leave to come back to Birmingham. A lot of people stay. They'll go over to the athletic complex and to the media room, and I guess they'll go up there and work, and then they'll come back down because it's on the indoor practice facility now, and they'll ask questions. I go ahead and get on the road, get back to here, so where I can kind of talk to you guys a little bit. J-Box asked, do we really have kicking concerns? Again, look, I can't tell you one way or another. I'm going to choose not to freak out and worry about it. I'm going to wait until we see it. But what I will say is that certainly haven't been getting just tons of encouraging news out of fall camp from the kicker. And you don't want to stack on that. And the negative energy, I'm a huge proponent of. Let's just not do that. But I mean, what I'm not going to do is tell you it's all rainbows and sunshines when everything coming out of fall camp that you guys already know has pretty much said otherwise. But as far as this new look on defense, Mick, that's probably the most exciting thing I saw today, because I think that's such a, like, with the amount of defensive backs, the talent that they have in their secondary, giving more guys an opportunity to get on the field. I think that's good. I think throwing some wrenches and things, and it's like, I think Alabama's offense is going to do so much to force opposing defenses to prepare on a week in, week out basis. They are going to be a nightmare to game plan for. And if they throw wrinkles in, because you're not only game planning for what they've shown you and what they're capable of, but you're also trying to kind of head things off, and where are they going to take it? What wrinkles are they going to throw in for us? What do we not do well? How are they going to try to exploit it? Let's try to stay ahead of it. Alabama's defense, I think they have the capability of doing the exact same thing on the other side of the football. And you have the personnel, you've got depth, use it, especially if that's the biggest strength of your team, which I do love the receivers, and I certainly think they're in the conversation, but I don't think anything touches Alabama's secondary right now. Figure out a way to utilize that depth. Get more of those guys in the field. They'll be physical. They'll get downhill. They'll make tackles. I really like, and granted, I don't know what they're going to do with this. It could be a situation where it's like, hey, we're going to throw this out there. We're going to let the media talk about it. Let Florida State catch a little bit of this, and then we're not even going to use it. And they're going to have to prepare for something we're not even using. It could be that, but just the possibility, I thought was pretty exciting. So definitely looking forward to seeing how things shake out.
Guys, you don't have to be on YouTube to hang with us. And we love you here. But also the Cover Crimson Podcast Network, Apple, Spotify, all those places. Put us on the downloads where it's continuously every day, whether it's this show or some of the other stuff that we do, because it helps us a lot, and we love the fact that we stay connected with you. Chad's asking me if I wonder if your buddy Mac Hereford is still negative about the team. Look, the bottom line is this, is I know guys that feel like DeBoer was too soft last year. Some of them played at Alabama, okay? And they didn't like the ice cream trucks. They didn't like the effort in the Oklahoma game. They didn't like the Vanderbilt effort. They didn't like us acting like we won a national championship when we barely got by beating Georgia. But they love Alabama. It's not like they want us to lose, right? And so you go through the process like some of these guys did at Alabama, and then you see guys that are showing up late for workouts and a quarterback that doesn't want to make tackles, or didn't make a tackle in that Oklahoma game. They can be pretty negative, right? But there's other stuff that's involved in there, too. And we decided that, we felt like the team was pretty close last year, but there was a lot of transition going on. They're going to have to win over some of these people. There's always going to be doubters, right? I mean, Saban had doubters, Paul Feinbaum, and it was fun watching him prove Paul Feinbaum wrong every year, right? So, I mean, even when you talk about like the doubter of all doubters in Feinbaum. Saban had to go and do it for like almost 20 years. Then he still got doubted, right? So that's just part of it. But what I heard is that these guys are getting after it. I wanted to hear that. I heard it from somebody that I value their opinion. They've been there, they see it, and they think the team's going to be really good. It hurts that we lost Jam. And that's something that, I'd love to get Coker's opinion on, knowing that he's not going to have Ty Simpson, a guy that he could have really relied on. But that's football. That's life. Every time you get up and go to your job, somebody could be out and you may have to fill in. And so, you know what? We're going to figure it out. But there's a lot of talent in that running back room. Clint, you talked about it. There's a lot of talent on this football team. I'll say this, Clint, kind of my closing thoughts on this whole thing is that if the offensive line gets it done, the running backs are going to look great. You know, and you look at teams that have great running backs, they have great offensive lines. And you don't have great running backs without great offensive lines. You didn't notice that?
It's rare. It is so rare. You got to have the Ashton Genty. I mean, you're talking just you're 100% right. You can make very mediocre running backs look really, really good if you got the guys that can create the holes for them. Ja'Cory, Croskett, Merritt, or however you say it, he plays for the Commanders. He played last night, and it was an off tackle play, and just he had the easiest pass to the end zone that I've ever seen. And, I was like, someone's going to look at this stat line because he's like a fantasy guy who was a 7th round pick. And now they're looking to potentially trade Brian Robinson. And, hey, does that mean that this guy's, is he coming? Is he the reason that they're doing that? And it's like, someone's going to look at this stat line. It was like a 30-yard touchdown or something. And they're going to think, man, this guy just keeps on producing. And it's like, that was not him. That was not him at all. That was his offensive line creating the easiest touchdown he's probably ever scored in his life because it was a massive hole. It might have been off the right guard, not the right tackle. I don't remember exactly what the play was, but I just remember thinking someone's going to look at a stat line and not really know the extent of this. But that is, I really do think, and Josh Johnson, he brought up this. He said, I think AK Deer will be that guy very soon. One thing I'll say, Josh, is I've heard great things about how AK Deer is trending. He's not to a point where it's like, okay, now one of the things that I always said about Keon Keeley, and I always use him as the example, is we were hearing good things in some of these scrimmages in years past, but it was always against third-string guys and walk-on guys. And it's like, until I start hearing, hey, he's getting reps with the ones or he's just destroying the second team, then I'll start buying into it. But the opponent, who you're going against, will tell you how a guy's doing. AK Deer has been showing out, but he's been showing out against second and third-string guys.
Right.
Once I start hearing, hey, they're giving him some reps in the first team, or hey, it was second team offense versus first team defense, and AK Deer absolutely torched him. It's like, I'm going to start paying attention. But he is clearly trending in that direction. He has as much ability, if not more ability, than anybody in that running back room. I loved him coming out of high school. I think the future with him and Crowell and, potentially one of these guys who are currently in the room, they're going to have a heck of a running back room in the future. Really excited to see it. But one of the things I thought from a conditioning standpoint, I thought his head was kind of spinning when he was out there, and based off of what we were able to see, you saw the talent and the ability, but it kind of seemed like his head was spinning back in the spring. Got that element of it knocked out back then. Then you start hearing about good things in fall camp. As long as he continues to take those steps and get more comfortable, the more that talent stuff's going to start showing out. So, man, I can't wait, because once that happens, whether it's from a depth standpoint or whatever ends up happening, AK Deer is going to help this backfield.
I agree. We're Roll Tide, guys. Thanks for hanging with us. We will be back tomorrow, and look for Elephant in the Room with Coker. We're putting that together as well. But thanks for being here. Again, brought to you by Pearl River Resort, and good day at practice. One day closer to Florida State.
To Pearl River Resort.